string! Pull the string!
Now we can talk to him one-on-one.
An unspeakable evil is stalking the net.
What kind of name is Captain Howdy?
Pain is a uniquely personal experience.
Oh God, please don't let this be happening.
There's nowhere to run. Daddy! There's no place to hide.
Find me.
He's got this town wired.
If I'm being honest, I think that this is way scarier than this. Now, I mean, I guess Twisted Sister kind of carried the torch for this kind of stuff all throughout the 80s or whatever, like, kind of like Kiss. They're the biggest version of that kind of music. Well, Twisted Sister, they're the biggest, hottest version of hair metal. And Twisted Sister did indeed carry a supposed torch through the decades to get us there with their no-holds-barred rock anthems, you know, that are far more impressive than people think, in my opinion. Love it or hate it, Twisted Sister was going to make their mark no matter what. I mean, as far as the lead singer Dee Snider was concerned, at least. You know, the dude's ambition is out of this world. And again, he kind of carried another torch for rock and roll during his infamous battle with censorship. I just love that footage. I watch it like once a year. He really schools those assholes. And, you know, he even found time in his busy career to hang out with Pee-wee. Which wasn't a coincidence or like label coercion or something, as Dee Snider always wanted to be in the movies. Albeit not necessarily like just Pee-wee movies, but I mean, I for one would love to see a full-on Dee Snider and Pee-wee movie. But, you know, he kind of wanted to be more of a, let's say, horror icon, as he grew up loving the genre and really being inspired by Robert Englund. And of course, horror in general is something that Twisted Sister kind of wore on their sleeves. I mean, in fact, the origins of Strangeland came directly from a Twisted Sister tune. That's the first act of their famous opus, Horror-Teria, The Beginning, which was called Captain Howdy. A moniker that, of course, has its own horror origins, although the Captain Howdy in the song was still, like, pretty far off than the one we got in the movie. I mean, the idea was there, and Dee Snider was already working on some scripts. In fact, he was kind of shopping them around, and one of them, upon some reworking again and again, you know, he wound up with Strangeland, where he was planning to take on the role of Captain Howdy himself, the sadistic, you know, torturous villain, who is one hell of a horror icon, in my opinion. Here, man, I mean, Dee Snider really is a spooky presence on screen. If you haven't seen Strangeland, I, of course, highly recommend it. The film itself, though, it's fairly low budget, but all done very well. It spends a lot of its time on, like, the mystery and suspense stuff. At times, kind of comes off as a slow burn. Now, it's also very much from its time period, you know, with the way it looks and, yeah, the soundtrack, I guess. Even though it's great, it's still very much of its time. But it all works, as all the elements in the film, they weren't really yet popularized, you know, and therefore weren't yet tropes in these kind of movies, at least. And as far as the subject matter goes, you know, I mean, it's kind of crazy to see that this was all basically aimed and marketed directly at a young teen audience.
Welcome to my world, Detective. Pain is a uniquely personal experience.
I mean, not to say that I don't have any negatives, spoiler alert. I feel that the movie kind of bites the weenie around the end of the second act when Captain Howdy is rehabilitated in prison. And then he's eventually released, where he's attacked by an angry mob who inadvertently dehabilitates him, and Captain Howdy soon starts his bloody legacy all over again. You know, all a good idea, but it feels really rushed here. All just done at a breakneck pace, and it's like I feel like they could have managed time a little better and introduced these elements a little earlier on in the movie, spent some time on him kind of being rehabilitated and stuff. But, you know, it all works. Damn, Strangeland really is ahead of its time. The torture porn era was still years away, and luckily for Snider, considering his past troubles with censorship and whatnot, he only needed a few edits, you know, to avoid the NC-17, and fairly easily got an R rating from the MPAA as long as they included something special, where Strangeland found itself being the very first film in history to have, you know, scenes of torture in the little card, you know, the R-rated card. Something that Dee Snider was very proud of. The movie just really feels genuine. Like no other movie really utilized this particular subgenre of like body modification or piercing in a realistic way. Not like this. Snider went out of his way for authenticity, even recruiting renowned piercing and tattoo artist Keith Alexander, who, side note, was in the band Carnivore, which is, Peter Steele's old band. A band that I was shocked to see is still around with a new singer. Who the hell is this guy? Anyways, the heavy metal credentials, well, they continued with the film's stellar soundtrack, including music from Marilyn Manson, Sevendust, Pantera, Megadeth, as well as brand new tunes from Twisted Sister and Bile, who was actually featured in the film. One hell of a choice. I'm glad that Dee Snider decided to throw Bile a bone. Really cool band. I once got to hang out with these guys after a show, and I've been a fan ever since then, even up to this day. Aside from that, the casting here is also on point. Not only do we get screen legends Kevin Gage and the late Elizabeth Pena, but we also get an at her peak Ali Larter and a Freaks and Geeks era Linda Cardellini.
That was really exciting because it was the first time I was ever on a poster
on the movie
of something.
poster.
And I'm not even the main part in there, but my parents had that. They were so proud that they had that poster up in the house.
Oh, really? Boy.
I mean, Mitch, maybe that's a parent's fantasy to shut the teenager
it might
up.
be. Yes, your teenage daughter showing her mouth up. Yeah.
And we even get a role from Robert Englund himself, who basically again inspired Snider to take on the horror genre. As Freddy was the big inspiration for Snider growing up, and all he wanted to do was be a horror icon, just like Freddy. Dee Snider had this to say about making the film: "I have not wanted to be an actor. I have dreamed of being a horror icon since I wrote Captain Howdy. I envisioned it as being more, and I've always kind of seen myself playing this part. As a writer, I created him from the ground up, so I don't know if I could be as effective as an actor in another part. I'd like to think I could, but I wouldn't say I'm an actor's actor and, I can play anything." Very well said, Dee. I think you nailed it in this part.
It's been said that the road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom, for we never know how much is enough.
Snider really did a standout job. It's crazy to think that he's a sober dude. There's been long talk of a sequel, and it's come close to production more than once on varying levels. Various scripts for a sequel have been written by Snider, including titles like Strangeland, Disciple, Strangeland, Rising Suns, and Strangeland 2, The Cult of Personality, which would feature a fully burned Captain Howdy, and who's seemingly locked up again, and this time he has like Charles Manson-like followers, which is a very cool idea. I mean, a fully burned Captain Howdy, still doing body mods and stuff. I mean, it just may be the next level of pain that this dude is searching for. But sadly, we have yet to see a sequel to this classic cult horror flick. But we did get a prequel in the form of comic books from Fangoria Comics. And later on, I believe the series was picked up by Scream Factory. A neat little prequel series. I've been trying to get my hands on it.
He's got this town wired.
Gotta love this technology.
Kevin Gage,
Ready to come in?
Elizabeth Pena,
What have you done with my daughter?
Robert Englund,
Somebody's got to take that boy out.
Dee Snider.
So much flesh, so little time.
The hunt has begun.
Wanna play ball, Scarecrow?
Strangeland.
I highly recommend Strangeland this holiday season, as it makes for the perfect watch on Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whenever. Please guys, like this video and leave me a comment. I'm really trying to hit that 7,000 subscriber mark before year's end. Hell, I had a great STAUNCH-O-WEEN this year with you all. I didn't get around to as many videos. I had a lot of problems out here. Computer crashed, internet goes down. We're in Texas, it was hot. Things went crazy. Hey, we're gonna keep at it. Next month, I'm gonna be doing a lot more comedy movies on the channel, plus a lot more music stuff. I've been kind of slow on the music kick. And then, this December, you know what it is, a very Corey Christmas. But until next time, this has been STAUNCH-O-WEEN. Leave me a like and a comment. Don't be a fucking loser.